Hi everyone, this is Long Vo. Today is October the 9th, 2012. I'm analyzing one of my games in the Burlington Chess Club. I'm playing black, currently rated 1590, and my opponent, Robert Gillanders, playing white, rated 1836. So he starts off with d4, and I play f6, and he goes c4, and I play e6. He continues with knight to f3, and I go c5, challenging the center, and he advances with d5. So e takes d, and c takes d, and d6, blockading the pawn. And so now my idea is I have a knight putting pressure here, and I'm thinking of adding the other knight here, putting pressure, and perhaps fianchettoing the bishop here to add more pressure and take the pawn back and really affect his center. So he goes knight to c3, adding a defender, and I go knight to a6. So I'm okay now because the bishop is not developed yet. And he goes e4, discovered attack on my knight. So knight to c7, and he goes h3. So now my light squared bishop is blocked off here, so it doesn't have any good squares to go to. But anyways, I'm thinking of fianchettoing the bishop. And so I go a6, trying to prevent the knight from coming in, and also for the bishop, because I don't like this weak light square diagonal, and also it prepares for b5, gaining more space on the queen side. So he goes a4, so it's preventing b5, and I go rook to b8, so adding a defender on the b5, and he goes bishop to d3. So once he went the bishop there, I immediately push for b5, thinking that so my knight is already protecting that. So if he takes and I take, he takes and I take, so I was still okay. I still have more defenders, and also if let's say I take and he decides to take with the bishop instead, then the bishop just lost a tempo moving to d3. So I felt that he wouldn't go all the way to the end of the exchange because the bishop already moved. So I was okay with going b5. So he immediately took with a takes b, a takes b, and he castles. So now I go bishop to e7 with the idea of castling. Now I think here the best move would probably be, I don't know, maybe to advance the pawn here, just to gain more space, and if the knight goes on the rim here, perhaps pin it or something like that. And also the bishop here is probably not the best spot for the bishop. I should probably have played g6 and then fianchettoing the bishop, because this dark diagonal here is quite weak. So the only pawn that's left there is the b pawn. So I felt that that would have been a stronger move. And the bishop here is not very active. It's really staying in the pawn chain here, being blocked off here. So yeah, that was probably not the most accurate move. So my opponent goes rook to e1, and so I castle, and he goes bishop to f4, putting pressure on my backwards d pawn here. And he probably has the intention of pushing for e5 here, and he has 1, 2, three defenders on that square, and I have only one. So that's not looking good. And so when the bishop went to f4, I immediately attacked it with knight to h5. And he retreats the bishop to h2, maintaining the pressure on the d6 pawn here, and also maintaining the defender on e5. And so the knight here is really bad because, as you can see, it's first of all undefended, and it's if that knight moves, then the queen can take. And I didn't realize that how badly positioned it was. And so immediately I push f5. I think that was a mistake as well, because now he plays e5. Now, even though it's I don't think I have the best position, I still had some counter play by I think my best move should have been bishop to b7, and because this pawn here is totally undefended here, because it just lost the last pawn there. And so next I would be able to take back, and I think that would have been fine. And then he may either choose to take the pawn, or to advance and really have this pawn here, like really annoying pass pawn here. So that could have been a problem, but once I can take this one, and then later on the bishop can come here, and then I can find other ways to add pressure on the pawn there, and plus the rook can come up here. So I think that would have been the best counterplay. I didn't see that move, so I played d takes e, a big mistake. Then knight takes e5. So now this knight here is hanging, and the center belongs to him, and this is a pass pawn here, quite dangerous. It's great outpost here, the threat of the knight forking the rook, the queen, and the bishop. And if he goes here, even if I move the queen somewhere, the bishop here is hanging. So everything's hanging. So the knight's hanging, bishop's hanging, big threat here, powerful pawn. The game is basically lost at this point. Anyways, I did my best to hang on, so I went knight takes d5, and accepting the fact that I would be down an exchange here, and plus then there's multiple threats, and I'm basically lost. And but my opponent plays knight takes b5. The threat still exists, right? But I think he should have kept it simple, and simply take the rook right there, or take the bishop or something like that, and then later take the knight or something. So the knight takes b5 I don't think was the best move from his part, and he, at the end of the game, he admits that he got kind of greedy and fancy. Anyways, let's see what happens. So knight to f4. So because of this move here, I sort of have a chance to protect the knight here with the other knight, and there is also a threat here if the knight moves. So if he attacks the queen, the bishop is hanging. So so then if he takes and I take, then there's a threat, so then it's equalized, right? And if he moves anywhere, or if let's say he takes the bishop or something like that, then I would simply recapture the knight here, and things are still equal. So I think he no, actually I'm up a piece here. So he I think he got greedy or something, and then he blundered with those moves. So this way my knight is off the hook. There's still okay, hold on. Yeah, so knight to f4, and he goes. So he runs the bishop to c4 check, and so now I develop the bishop to e6, and so now the threat still remains. Now the queens have a chance to be exchanged. If he takes, obviously I have to take back because it's a check, and then now the knight here hangs again. So that's a possibility. But then if that happens, then his knight is also hanging. So here I think it's equal. So I guess he did blunder there, and so after bishop to e6, he goes bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, and then he goes knight to c6. And this works out for me because then I have queen takes d1. And he didn't see that move, and that was my saving move to maintain equality. And then so now he has this check, so knight takes e7 check, and I go king to f7, threatening the knight, and this knight is hanging. So I'm still well, of course this bishop here is hanging. I mean the rook here is hanging, so I think he still has the advantage here. Rook takes d1, and of course now I have to get the rook out of danger with rook takes b5. Now he gets his knight out of danger with knight takes f5. So let's see what's going on here. So the pieces are equal, and he's up one pawn. Now I take rook takes b2, and now we're equal. So he totally blundered there, giving up the chance to be up a whole piece, and with a lot of initiative. So so he goes rook to b1, offering an exchange. Rook takes b1, rook takes b1, and I have a passed pawn here, so I think I'm doing better. My king is a little bit more active, and I guess the bishop is more powerful in this totally open board, but if I can somehow hold and defend the pawn here, I will force him to exchange one of his pieces for the pawn. So I go knight to f4, making this knight finally, freeing it and making it more active. And he goes king to g1, avoiding the check with temple. So king to f6, making my king even more active. I think my better move should have been to start pushing the pawn, because then it sort of forces him to make his rook inactive. And if I defend the pawn here, my rook here has more options than his. His rook is now tied down to this pawn here, and with the two knights fighting against the bishop and the knight, I think, and using my king, I could make something happen here. But I didn't see that, and so I go king to f6. He goes knight to e3. So that's a strong move, because now he's defending the c4 square, and he's planning to blockade the pawn. So my king being up there is probably not a strong move. And I push for g5, trying to shut down the bishop here by protecting the knight, and then I can move the other knight, and these two here would keep the bishop inactive. So that was the plan. And he goes f3, so controlling the g4 square to prevent me from perhaps, you know, pushing on the king side. So I go bishop to c8 with the idea of pushing the pawn, because if the rook defends, then the other knight can always come in and help. So he goes knight to c4, blockading my pawn, and the pawn is on a dark square, so this is not good because he has the opportunity to add more attackers. So if it was on a light square, which I should have put him on the light square earlier instead of moving this this pawn here, terrible move, that would have been a much better move. So rook to a8, just looking for a way to, you know, create some counterplay or something. Bishop to g3. I'm not sure if that move is the best. I think he should have simply put pressure on the pawn right there and find a way to put pressure on it with the rook. Anyways, rook to g3. Yeah, I'm not sure why. Rook to a2. With the idea of attacking the knight from behind, and in doing so I'm also protecting the pawn. So knight goes to e3, stealing the c2 square from my rook, and h5. So this is how, you know, I think these moves here don't make sense at all, and it just shows my inexperience. And I think here the right thing to do is really to focus on trying to move, you know, maneuver the knights around to protect this square, so I could push the pawn, right? So, or creating some, you know, exchange or something of knights, or but I'm really focusing on the king side here, which doesn't make sense because there's a, you know, 2 against 3 here, so how am I gonna break through? So this is just bad pawn play. So bishop to e1, making the bishop more active. So I think here he's thinking of creating some threats here. I guess if he had gone here, he can't really attack the king because the pawn's there. So he's thinking of attacking the king from this side here. And I go king to e7. So now I'm looking for a way to just go around, connecting the king to the pawn and looking for ways to push. And he goes h4. So if he does that, then he creates a pass pawn himself, right? So I go knight to d3. So this, I think, is correct, defending the pawn, putting pressure on the bishop. And so what if he takes? The knight is still there to defend, and the other knight is still protecting the pawn. So so he goes h takes g, and I go knight takes e1. So I don't know if that's the correct move, but I think that exchanging pieces here made sense. But here he gets a pass pawn, so, but of course if he keeps pushing, then there's no way for him to defend it. So I was okay with waiting and taking the bishop first. I thought the bishop was more powerful. And knight to f5, in between move with check. So of course the king has to move. So I go king to f7, just keeping an eye on the g6 square. And now he goes rook takes e1, and threatening the knight. Knight takes g5, and now he goes knight to d6, check. So now he has the idea of perhaps blockading the pawn further, and king to f6, and he goes f4, gaining space, pushing his pass pawn, and knight to e6 and g3. Now I'm looking for a way to promote the pawn, so rook to c2 with the idea of continuing to push here. Then he goes rook to e5, threatening the h pawn here. And I don't know why I kept pushing for c4, but I think I should have perhaps defended here. That would have been a better move. And it's just I didn't like the idea of him delivering checks and stuff like that. And then, no, of course that wouldn't make sense. Sorry. But I'm not sure why I decided to give up this pawn for advancing this pawn. But so same thing, it shows my inexperience. So anyways, I went c4, rook takes h5, c3, rook to h6 check, and king to e7. So here's the problem. So I don't see, my opponent is way more experienced than me, so he sees these tactics, and what I'm missing here is that the square d4 here, if he can get his knight there, he's forking the rook and the knight. So of course not the knight, because the knight can take, but if he can somehow get my king there, and so he has this good tactics with knight to f5 check. So now my knight is lost, right? So I didn't even see that, so I went king to d7, but wherever I went, it wouldn't make a difference. So he goes rook takes e6. So when I saw that move, I got excited right away, and I took the rook. Well, anyways, I had no choice. Now another tactic that I could have used was, you know, delivering check, and you know, if the king moves or something, then I could take, right? So so if the king moves, then I could take the rook, and then there's no way for him to fork the king and the rook, and that would have been winning for me. But of course he had rook to e1 defending, and then of course if I exchange, there's nothing I can do here, and he's got the passed pawns, and it's over for me. So he saw that, so he knew that that tactic of getting the rook out of the way, you know, wouldn't change anything, and of course, you know, check here doesn't make sense. So the game was lost. I went king takes e6, knight to d4 check, king to d5, knight takes c2, king to e4, and when he went king to e2 with taking away the 3 squares here with opposition, it was over. There was nothing I can do to connect myself to the pawns, so wherever I went, he would simply, you know, well, that's blockaded, right? So he would simply keep pushing, and there's nothing I can do. I could just fall back, and then he would start pushing his pawns, and it's over. So I resigned right there. So I hope you guys learned something from this game, and I sure did. I think I could have done way better, and I made a blunder, but I think I held my my position the best that I could, and he blundered. So then at first he was totally winning, then he blundered, it was equal, and I thought I had the better position with the pass pawn here, and I could have been winning, and then I blundered, and then he won. So anyways, that was a crazy game, and I'll see you guys next time.